This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Eric Kessler has been labeled one of the country's smoothest con men. Charming, intelligent, and cosmopolitan. He has won the hearts of at least 4 middle-aged women and then left them broken and bankrupt. No one is certain how many women Eric Kessler has victimized or how many hundreds of thousands of dollars he's allegedly stolen. But authorities believe that at this very moment, Kessler may be spinning a web of deceit for another unsuspecting victim. In a moment, we'll bring you a fascinating profile of this master con man, as well as these other remarkable mysteries. 2 years ago, Daniel Wilson left Spokane, Washington to visit his mother's home in Colorado. He never arrived, and authorities are still baffled by the discovery of his abandoned car in a remote area of Montana, miles off his intended route. And in Minnesota, a daring gang of thieves has stolen nearly $2 million in a series of violent armored car robberies. Also, the authorities are searching for a ruthless rapist who uses prescription drugs to subdue his victims. Perhaps someone watching tonight can help capture him. Perhaps it's you. This is the story of a cunning operator who has allegedly bilked several middle-aged women out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The victim you're about to meet, whom we will call Catherine, never imagined that she'd fall prey to a scam. She was a successful, highly intelligent businesswoman who owned one of Wisconsin's most popular hair salons. According to police, she was swindled by one of the most devious con men to ever operate in the state. No one knows how many women he has victimized. No one is even certain of his real name. September 1986. Catherine was at a singles party when she was approached by a well-dressed stranger who spoke with a pronounced European accent. He introduced himself as Eric Kessler.
No, I was born in Hamburg.
Oh, Germany.
Yeah.
Do you still have family?
The night I first met Eric Kessler, he presented himself as a businessman who was in town on business and would be staying for probably a year.
Some business associates have asked me to look at some property here about some...
I was impressed on his dress, on his mannerism. I never got an impression that he was even attempting to make a pass.
And what do you do here? You work?
Yes. I have a hair salon right here.
Eric encouraged Catherine to reveal intimate details about herself. He soon learned that she was divorced, operated a hair salon, and was concerned about being able to put her children through college.
I see. It's such a coincidence that we should meet.
Oh.
I'm talking with some friends of mine from Western Europe who are telling me about some very important changes in the cosmetology and in the makeup beauty business that have changed.
Eric happened to have a solution. He had learned that in a small resort town 120 miles away, there was a prototype of an invention which could revolutionize Catherine's industry.
Well, I'd like to hear about that. What area of the business is it?
Well, it's very complex and very technical, but I...
This was the hook that lured Catherine into Kessler's scheme.
I did not get any impression that this would be a physical relationship. I just felt that it was an opportunity. Yes, I was excited about it.
Eric arranged for Catherine to see the image system known as the video makeover. At that time, it was the cutting edge of technology, enabling clients to see how they would look with different hairstyles and colors.
Now, what if we cut off a little bit on the sides here? Can you do that?
Okay, why don't we do it that way?
Just by doing that?
I thought that the concept was fantastic.
from here,
you
and then
could
it's gonna come on
charge
my image?
a large amount of money for it.
All right. Well, let's
Eric Kessler had convinced Catherine that he could place the system in a major Midwest department store chain, but she needed to come up with the investment capital to get them started.
Sylvia, it's called a video makeover.
Catherine secured a $50,000 loan from a wealthy friend. Eric was to repay the loan 4 months later.
She did not ask a lot of questions because she believed in me. She wrote a check for $50,000.
Oh, you're terrific.
Oh, come
Thank
on.
you.
At Eric's insistence, the business account was established in Catherine's name. She had sole discretion over deposits and withdrawals. A few days later, Eric suggested that he move into Catherine's basement so they could work more closely together. It appeared that their business was starting to take shape.
We brought in another telephone line, which was strictly a business line. At one point in time, my son took the message from the department store saying they wanted to set up a meeting with Eric Kessler. He was very convincing.
Before long, Eric began to romance his new partner.
When I really think about it, what he really did was to find out where I was business-wise. I have dealt with people who have attempted to con me or take me in business matters. When Eric Kessler came into my life, it never occurred to me that the man was a con artist because I certainly assumed that I would know, I would recognize that. The fact that Eric also made me feel that he was in love with me also put me off guard.
3 weeks later, Eric's conquest was complete. He surprised Catherine with a most unusual gift.
Eric?
Yeah. Upstairs.
Eric, what are you doing in my... Eric,
I have a gift for you.
what in the world have you done?
That other bed was too small for us.
One day when I came home from work, there was a king-size bed in my bedroom. And he had made the decision that it would be much easier if he could have the office downstairs and didn't have to use it also as a bedroom. And his way of doing that was to bring in a king-size bed.
Do you like it?
I love it.
Good.
Thank you.
Eric's seduction now evolved into a strategy of psychological manipulation.
My dear, you look so beautiful in the outfit I have chosen for you. It makes you feel good.
Yes.
It makes you feel confident.
Eric controlled Catherine's every decision, selecting her wardrobe, her makeup, the jewelry she wore.
And we are confident people.
I did get to the point that I was not confident. I mean, I wouldn't have bought a pair of earrings at that point because I didn't think that I was capable of doing it anymore.
Mr. Kessler.
Eric even convinced Catherine to lease a high-priced Cadillac with all of the options.
This package does include the electric sliding sunroof, the hand-sewn leather upholstery, the leather-covered steering wheel, the AM/FM stereo radio with cassette and high-performance sound system, and the 6-way adjustable seats.
That's good. I want the car telephone.
It also includes a telephone with a fully retractable antenna.
Good.
Now, on a 24-month closed-end lease agreement, that would bring your payments down to $487.75 a month.
Erica, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think we have $500 a month to spend on
My
this.
dear, this is a taxable deduction. Why can't you make an intelligent business decision? Why are you wasting this
Eric's
gentleman's
domination
time?
became more calculating. He deprived Catherine of sleep, insisting they conduct their business at night after she put in a full day of work at the salon and an evening entertaining prospective clients.
While I'm gone, I want you to pay all of these invoices. Yeah.
Oh, please. I'm exhausted. It's 3 in the morning. Can't this wait?
No.
Eric, there must be $7,000 of invoices to be paid.
Yeah, I know.
We hadn't planned on these expenses.
Many times Eric demanded that Catherine give him large cash advances, claiming the money was owed to suppliers who would not accept checks.
Now, we have accountants, we have business managers, we have lawyers, we have tax consultants.
As the startup capital dwindled, Eric convinced Catherine to put an additional $20,000 of her own money into the business.
Thank you.
I didn't know who I was more angry with, myself or Eric.
Good night, Eric.
All we had done is spent money. It had not been spent wisely. Here I am as a businesswoman, and I have blown it. I mentioned to him that I thought that he was a con man, and I had thought about going to the police. He said, "What good would it do you? You got the money. You signed all of the checks. You agreed to all of the decisions that were made. There is nothing that ties me in. I have never signed anything. It is your word against mine."
The relationship completely disintegrated.
Eric, we have to talk.
I'm playing.
Now, Eric, please.
Yeah. 2 wine, please.
Eric had taken another lover and moved out of Catherine's apartment. When the day arrived for Eric to repay the loan, Catherine met him at a bar to ask for the money.
What am I supposed to do? I am supposed to give Sylvia $50,000 tonight. There's no money in the account. What am I going to do?
You will write her a check.
With what? There's nothing left in the account.
I have a check coming by special courier tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for $50,000.
And if they don't come, what then?
It will be here, and you will write
Emotionally, I was drained and I was exhausted. I wanted to believe that I was going to get money. Down deep, I didn't believe it, but that was the only thing I had left. I had to hope that the check was going to be there. I met my benefactor that night. I wrote the check. I was very hesitant if it all was going to come through.
Hello?
I've got to talk to Eric Kessler. Where is he?
I don't know. Who is this?
This is Andy down at Irishman's Pub. He bounced a check in here last night for $1,000, and I want to know where he is.
I don't know where
When the
he
bartender called me the next morning,
right down.
I knew right then and there it was all over.
Catherine lost more than $75,000 and was unable to pay for her children's education. She was forced into bankruptcy and sold her business. Finally, she left Wisconsin and moved to another state to start over again. Authorities were certain that Edward Maynard was somewhere in the U.S. stalking his next victim. Calls to our telecenter confirmed their suspicions. The night of our broadcast, authorities learned that Maynard had recently been in Naples, Florida, using the alias Eric Kelly. Last December, he became romantically involved with a woman whom we'll call Ann. Maynard, alias Kelly, persuaded Ann to loan him $15,000, then left with their life savings. Last February, Maynard showed up in San Antonio, Texas, once again using the name Eric Kelly. He began wining and dining another woman.
He kept talking about how that he could really do a lot for me, but of course it would take a lot of money. And he started asking me if I had money, how much I had. And so I started feeling very strongly that something was wrong.
I've asked you for a simple favor, a loan of $300 until tomorrow morning.
He said, I need you to loan me some money. And I indicated that I didn't want to, and at that point he got very loud, a violent temper.
But I need $300, and I need it now. Do you understand?
And to be very honest, he frightened me. So I gave him the money, and I did not see him again after that evening.
Barbara notified the local sheriff's department about her run-in with Eric Kelly.
Wednesday evening, I got a phone call from someone in the sheriff's department. He had said, "Hey, are you watching Unsolved Mysteries on TV? Our boy was just on there." I said, "Eric Kelly?" He said, "Yes, bigger than life. I'm getting ready to call the FBI and give them all the information that I have."
4 days later, another viewer's tip placed Edward Maynard in Houston, Texas. He was registered at this motel under the same alias, Eric Kelly. The FBI closed in.
We immediately dispatched a number of agents out there. In fact, there was up to 8 agents that were on the scene, and within 45 minutes, he was apprehended.
Next, the story of an unscrupulous doctor turned rapist who uses drugs to overpower his victims. The crime of rape is a tragic and all too frequent fact of life in the United States. Sadly, the stigma attached to the women who are victimized means such crimes often go unreported. This is especially true of date rape, when the victim knows and even trusts the man who rapes her. In our next story, the methods of the rapist are particularly insidious. This is a case of a doctor who uses a powerful sedative to render his victims helpless and then assaults them. One woman agreed to talk to us on the condition that we do not use her real name. Saturday night, a bar in Bakersfield, California. Patty Roberts and Stephanie Phillips were shooting pool when they were greeted by a friend of Stephanie's.
Hi, Patty. Hi, nice to meet you.
He introduced the two women to his companion, Dr. Kenneth Frank. Stephanie and Patty agreed to join the men for a drink.
Immediately, I liked him. I thought, oh, he's a doctor. He's a nice guy. He was well-dressed, well-mannered. He's real friendly.
Yes.
Real
The
talkative.
24-hour clinic. Yeah. What do you do?
I'm a dental assistant.
Really?
Well, I'm studying to be a dental assistant.
Oh, are you serious about it?
Oh, yes.
Really? I work with a couple of dentists.
He said he had a friend, and he said that he might be hiring, and that he would give me a card, referral and all that.
Will that help you out?
Yes, sure.
Hey, no problem. I'd love to do it.
Thanks.
No problem.
Basically, he did act professional.
Piece of paper.
Okay, well, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Okay.
Well, I walked to the restroom,
She's great.
and I was talking to this girl that was in there, so I was in there a few seconds, and then I came back out, and he was still sitting there, and my friend was not there.
Where are Bob and Stephanie?
It's getting late. They decided to leave.
They're not coming back?
First, I thought he was just playing, and I said, "No, really?" And he
That's
said,
a
"Yeah."
problem for
So
you. I could give you a ride home.
he said, "I can give you a ride home," and I said, "No, I'll wait." She didn't show up.
Sure they're not gonna bring me
a few
back.
minutes later, and I was ready to go, and so I said, "Okay, well, do you want to still give me the ride home?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "You sure you don't mind?" He said, "No." So we left in his car, and then he wanted to stop by his apartment to do something, he said, and I wanted him to get that job referral that he had told me about, a dentist friend that was hiring.
By the time they got to Dr. Frank's apartment that Saturday night, Patty was complaining of a chest cold.
Here we go. This will make you feel a lot better. Drink that.
Dr. Frank quickly mixed up a home remedy, a special coffee drink he claimed would alleviate Patty's cough.
I drank it quickly, and it wasn't long after that my eyes started getting blurry. And then I was sitting there trying to figure out why my eyes were blurry. And then my ears started ringing, a real high pitch. And then I fell over. I remember laying there, and I couldn't move.
Patty. Come on, Patty. Time to wake up.
It was not until Monday morning that Patty awoke. She would soon discover that while she slept, she had been raped.
What time is it?
It's 7 o'clock. It's Monday morning. I've got to get to work. Come on, let's get going.
Monday morning?
I couldn't figure out what happened to Sunday. Somewhere I lost Sunday.
You raped me.
I didn't rape you.
I knew that he had taken advantage of me, and I was so mad. I just felt like, you know, I wanted to hurt him like he hurt me, you know, my feelings, because that wasn't given to him. He took it.
Patty had been knocked out for at least 26 hours. Still groggy and disoriented, and as yet unaware that she had been drugged, Patty had the doctor drive her home.
We turned the corner right by my apartments, and I lived in a really huge apartment complex, so I told him to let me out there. I didn't want him to see what apartment I lived in because I didn't want him to come after me.
Patty, I wouldn't tell anybody about this if I were you. If you do, next time we'll have to fix it so you can't.
I started running, trying to get to my apartment. As I got to my apartment, which was in the very back, I saw him in his car. He was right in front of me, so he knew at that point where I lived. I went home and I took a shower and I went to my aunt's house. And I just started feeling nauseated, real bad, and I remember getting sick everywhere, and I couldn't, you know, I couldn't help it. It was kind of like the flu or something.
Patty continued to be immobilized by Dr. Frank's home remedy, spending much of the rest of the day in a deep drug-induced sleep. Like many victims of rape, Patty was so overcome by fear and embarrassment she could not yet bring herself to go to the police. 7 days later, Patty had a second encounter with Dr. Frank, who acted as if nothing was wrong. Patty decided to play along, hoping to get Frank to admit his crime.
I was kind of offended at first, and then I thought, well, if I'm going to find out anything, you know, I'm going to have to be nice to him and just ask him questions and stuff.
So tell me, what was that stuff you gave me the other night?
I didn't give you anything. We just had a good time.
You can tell me. It's some pretty wild stuff.
He was going to tell me he didn't give me anything. And then he told me that it was a sedative. And that I was kind of like an experiment for him.
You liked it. We had a good time. Come on. Come on.
You raped me!
I was really angry at him then. And then after I started screaming and yelling at him, he knew that I wasn't going to play his little games anymore. Because I had decided then I was going to go to the police. Basically, I just looked around at all the little girls out there running around. They don't know about stuff like this. And I thought, you know, if I can at least give a report to the police, then I can help someone else.
And
3 months after the rape, Patty filed an official police report, but stopped short of pressing charges.
It was a sedative.
She was worried that a trial would come down to her word against Dr. Frank's, an unknown student against an established
I
physician.
accused him of raping me.
Patty also believed that being associated with a rape case would jeopardize her future chances for employment.
Are you willing to press charges?
No.
She also feared that Dr. Frank might make good on his threat to harm her.
If he does this again to somebody else, yes, I will.
Okay, Tracy, it's ready.
4 months after he had raped Patty, Dr. Frank raped another woman. Theirs was an established professional relationship. This victim, too, was given a sedative. When she awoke 24 hours later, Frank admitted that he had drugged her. It was later estimated that the amount of the sedative in her system was 8 times greater than that normally administered to patients in surgery.
She was a professional woman in town in her mid-30s, and after she became aware of this situation, after Dr. Frank told her what happened, she went to a local lab in town, had her blood tested for the drug he told her he had given her, and it did come back positive for that particular drug, and then she went to the police.
Based on the statements of Patty and the other victim, Kenneth Frank was arrested in February of 1986. Legal wrangling delayed his trial until December of 1989. Frank showed up on time for every court appearance. On December 20th, 1989, the jury rendered its verdict.
He was convicted of 2 counts of rape by administering an intoxicating or anesthetic substance. It carries the same amount of time as the more common type of rape known as a forcible rape. What happened is the jury verdict came in, and at that time I requested the judge take the defendant into custody because he was looking at a maximum of 16 years in state prison. He was out on his own recognizance at the time, so there was no bail up at all, and the judge declined to do that. When he came up for sentencing, 28 days, which is the normal period of time, he didn't show up.
When we return, the bizarre tale of a mild-mannered man whose temper suddenly erupted at work on the very day he vanished. What happened to Daniel Wilson? Dan Wilson of Spokane, Washington, was known as a quiet religious man. In 1986, when Dan was 33, his marriage broke up, but he remained close to his young son and daughter and visited them often. In 1987, Dan suffered a nervous breakdown, which he felt was due to the trauma of his divorce. By the summer of 1988, however, he was off his medication and seemed to have his life back under control. In June, Dan went to work at the ASC Machine Tool Company in Spokane, and according to co-workers, was a steady, reliable employee. Then suddenly, on August 24th, everything changed.
Hey, Dan, when's this one going to be done?
What's the problem, Jerry?
Oh, there's no problem. Just need it over on the other line whenever you're done with it.
Every time I try to get my work done, you come down here and give me a hard time about it. What's going on?
Wait a minute. I didn't say anything about your work.
Hey, the heck you haven't. I know what you've been saying, what they've all been saying about me. And I don't like it.
Quiet down.
I don't need to be quiet. I just want you to leave me alone so I can get my work done, all right?
Dan Wilson's foreman was shocked by the outburst. He and the plant manager were concerned and told Dan to take time off and return to work whenever he felt ready. Dan left the plant at 11 o'clock in the morning. It was Wednesday, August the 24th, 1988. Two days went by. Dan Wilson's neighbors noticed that his sprinklers had been left running. On Friday, they turned them off, never suspecting that anything was wrong. Dan was not scheduled to visit his children that weekend, so his ex-wife never noticed he was missing. His mother, who lived in Colorado, telephoned, but was not alarmed when she received no answer. Saturday, then Sunday, came and went, and no one even knew Dan Wilson was missing. Sunday, August 29th, 1988. In a remote area of Custer County, Montana, an abandoned car was investigated by Sheriff Tony Harbaugh.
When the car was found, the doors were unlocked. In fact, one of the doors was ajar.
Check for keys in it, Mark.
The keys were not in the vehicle when it was found. There were a few miscellaneous items, one of which was a Bible laying on the front seat.
You've got a Bible on this side, Daniel Wilson inscribed in the front of it.
Sheriff Harbaugh traced the car to Dan Wilson. It had been abandoned more than 700 miles from Dan's Spokane residence.
There was no luggage in the car to indicate that Daniel was planning a trip. Nothing that would really give us a firm indication of what Daniel was thinking or doing in the area.
Record this location, have this vehicle towed into town.
We conducted both ground and aerial searches. It's my belief that if Daniel Wilson was in the area, in any of the area that we covered, we should have found him at that time.
There seemed to be no explanation for Dan's car being found abandoned in the middle of the Montana prairie. Baffled, Dan's mother, Darlene Wilson, along with 2 of his cousins, went to Montana to talk to the sheriff and look for some answers.
We've checked the car. We've searched the ground around the area here.
The sheriff told us that the car looked like it had just been parked there and that someone had walked away from it. They had looked under the hood and there was nothing wrong there, and there was a third of a tank of gas. Thank you. I couldn't visualize in my mind that he would just walk away from the car and just take off. It certainly was not an area where you would expect a person would stop and take a walk.
I really feared for his safety from the beginning because of the state of mind he was in.
Glenda had visited Dan 2 days before he disappeared. She was surprised by the disarray in his home.
Looking around, I seen that the children had been there that weekend. Things had been left quite messy, which was very uncharacteristic for him.
I'm a ranger or policeman.
He seemed agitated, and he seemed real tired.
Is everything okay?
Oh, early shifts at the job and trouble there, you know.
Before she left, Glenda suggested that Dan take time off to visit the family in Colorado.
I know what you've been saying about me, what they've all been saying about me. I don't like it.
48 hours later, Dan had his outburst at work and vanished. His family believed he had taken Glenda's advice and started for Colorado to visit them. Dan's family lived here in Longmont, Colorado. He had made the trip from Spokane to Longmont many times before. Using the route he normally traveled, Interstate 90, Dan would have headed south at Billings, Montana. Instead, Dan turned onto a different highway, Interstate 94, heading due east. He continued for 150 miles into the sparsely populated area of Montana where his car was found. How had Dan strayed so far off course on such a familiar route? His mother suspected foul play.
I know that he did pick up hitchhikers. If he felt he could give somebody a ride, he would. I'm concerned that maybe he was not the person that parked the car in Montana, that it could have been somebody else.
Determined to unravel the mystery, Dan's mother and cousins went back to Spokane. Dan's home was in even worse disarray than when Glenda had visited 10 days earlier.
He's even left the light on.
I'll go look in the bedrooms.
Surprisingly, his luggage, his clothes, and an uncashed paycheck were all still in the house.
The suitcases are still here.
I couldn't see where he had taken anything at all. Not even a toothbrush or razor. It just looked like that he had just left and intended to come back.
The next day, Dan's family left Spokane, more puzzled than ever. Darlene and Glenda drove Dan's car on the return trip. En route, they both had sore throats and felt an odd burning sensation in their eyes.
Have you noticed anything?
You know, my eyes have been hurting too.
As soon as they returned home, they had the car inspected.
Well, folks, what we have here is a faulty muffler on the car. It could be allowing exhaust gases to enter into the interior of the car. I would say the car would be unsafe to drive.
It appeared that a carbon monoxide leak in the muffler might have caused Darlene's and Glenda's physical symptoms. Dan had been driving the same car every day for over a year. It is possible that carbon monoxide poisoning could have caused him severe physical and emotional damage.
Chronic exposure to carbon monoxide can cause fatigue, can cause definite changes in personality. Confusion can cause permanent loss of function of the brain, intellectual ability, memory, as well as severe personality changes resembling psychosis.
A memory loss, confusion, amnesia. Maybe he knows his name, but maybe that's about all. Maybe he doesn't realize where his family is or how to get in touch with any of them.
Darlene Wilson flooded the state of Montana with flyers. In late November of 1988, a homeless shelter in Billings, Montana, sent Darlene a copy of his desk register. The register showed that a Daniel Wilson had signed in to spend the night on November 12th, nearly 3 months after Dan had disappeared. Darlene compared the signature with one of her sons. The similarity was striking, so she and her nephew decided to go to Billings and talk to the men who ran the shelter.
My name's Darlene Wilson. I'm here to see Mr. Johnson, please.
Still clinging to the fragile hope that Dan might be wandering aimlessly, knowing his name but nothing else, Darlene brought along several photographs of him, hoping for a positive identification and some new clues.
Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
You called earlier?
Yes.
I think you have a photo for me.
I have a photo of my son. I wondered if you could help us.
I believe I've seen this young man, David.
Oh, yeah, we've seen him here before. I'm sure he spent the night, too.
It was really a sense of relief for us. We thought, surely if he has been here that recently, that he still would be around somewhere where we could find him. So we distributed more posters around in Billings and throughout all the area, from Billings into Spokane again.
There has been no trace of Dan Wilson for nearly 2 years. Authorities found no sign of violence and no evidence of a second person in Dan's car, so they have tended to discount the foul play theory. They have, however, suggested the possibility that Dan Wilson made a conscious choice to disappear.
I feel it's not impossible that Dan made a decision to disappear and start a new life. He was under a great deal of pressure. He had not had a happy life since coming to Spokane. But I feel the possibilities are small due to the fact he was so devoted to his children, and he felt the children needed him so badly.
I feel that whatever has happened is something beyond his control. He could be most anywhere, and we wouldn't be able to locate him, or he wouldn't be able to locate us.
When we return, 3 daring armored car robberies executed with military precision, an ingenious gang of thieves that's still at large. Every day, billions of dollars in hard currency are transported by armored cars. Considered by most criminals to be impregnable, these vehicles have recently been targeted by a brazen, heavily armed gang who carry out their raids with almost military precision. 1 p.m., April 18th, 1989, Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Come over and shoot!
Instinctively, the guard grabbed one of the robbers' guns, but was quickly subdued. No shots were fired.
These guys seemed to move very smoothly. They didn't seem to be in a hurry or panicky or nothing. They were very smooth.
These robbers come very heavily armed and very much ready to shoot.
Almost simultaneously, the second phase of the heist began. Another vehicle pulled up in front of the armored car, cutting off any route of escape. A fourth robber then placed what appeared to be a bomb on the truck's hood. In just under a minute, the robbers had stolen close to $1 million. They then vanished without a trace.
It seemed like kind of a commando type thing, like these people had been well trained at that type of thing, or well practiced.
A bomb squad was immediately dispatched to the scene. Attaching guide wires to the device, they carefully removed it from the truck's hood. X-rays later revealed the bomb was a fake, and the FBI concluded that it was nothing more than an ingenious delaying tactic. The FBI linked this fake bomb to an identical device used in a Baltimore, Maryland robbery 3 years earlier. In that operation, the thieves made off with over $600,000. The FBI concluded both robberies were executed by the same gang. In the first two heists, through a combination of careful planning and clockwork timing, the crooks had stolen $1.6 million. They had also brilliantly covered their tracks. Every vehicle they had used had been stolen, wiped clean of evidence, and then abandoned. It was thought that the gang would quit while they were $1 million ahead, but 1 year later, they struck again. March 27, 1990, Burnsville, Minnesota, just 10 miles from the scene of the last robbery. As one Brinks guard waited in the cab, another made a cash pickup at a local bank.
On the ground, right now. Okay. On the ground. Okay.
Once again, the second guard was caught behind the wheel.
As I turned around, I see this van that was coming up in front of me. I hit the van real hard, I knew that. I turned my siren on, shots went off, scared the living daylights out of me. I made a circle to come around so I could see what was going on. And when I was about 3/4 of the way through my circle, I could see where our cart was. And as I was going by, I could see my partner on the ground. All those shots that were going on, I thought they'd killed him. I thought he was dead. He was just laying on the ground.
Fortunately, the guard was uninjured. His partner fought back.
At the time, I thought, well, I got these guys right where I want them. I just rammed it as hard as I could.
Despite the collision, the robbers still managed to get away.
It's a real lucky situation that some innocent bystander wasn't killed, because there were a number of shots fired and there were a number of shoppers passing and bank customers passing right by the area.
The robbers abandoned their car behind a nearby shopping center and left on foot. The FBI theorized that they may have had another vehicle parked nearby, which they used to leave the area. Authorities quickly cordoned off the neighborhood. They brought in tracking dogs. Roadblocks were set up. But the gang had once again made a clean getaway. The following morning, police found one of the gang's stolen cars less than a mile from the bank. As in the other robberies, it contained no evidence that identified the robbers. Currently, all the authorities can do is wait for the elusive robbers to strike again.
These individuals could be living anywhere in the United States, and we would like to get information from anybody who has any indication that people that may be able to perpetrate this type of crime have come into a lot of money, or that had the capability to commit these robberies in any one of these three cities.
There are apparently at least 4 members of the gang, and authorities have managed to create composites of 3 of the men. The first suspect is a white male in his late 30s, about 5 feet 9 inches tall, with dark hair and a dark mustache. Suspect number 2 is white, between 35 and 38 years old, about 6 feet in height, and weighs between 170 and 180 pounds. The third suspect is approximately 6 feet tall and is between 35 and 40 years old. He has gray or white hair and may wear a false beard the same color. Join me next week for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.
Thank you.